severe, I don't know what you want to call it, exception with parts of the legislative declaration. One part is F. Will some anti-abortion centers go so far as to advertise medication abortion reversal, a dangerous and deceptive practice that is not supported by science or clinical standards, according to the college, according to the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. I'm sorry, I'm just a simple country electrician. I don't know how to say some of these words. So, right here in my formerly nicotine-stained hands, I have a case study that talks about this exact thing. This case study says a case series detailing the successful reversal of the effects of mifepristone using progesterone. And after I talk about this case study, I'll go into my own experience with progesterone. Here's the background. Some women who take mifepristone, a progesterone receptor antagonist, in order to terminate their pregnancies, change their minds and desire to stop taking the medical abortion process. There are only 2 articles in the medical literature documenting the reversal of the effects of mifepristone. The objective of this is we present and analyze a series of women who attempted to reverse the effects of mifepristone by taking supplemental progesterone to determine if the reversal of the effects mifepristone with progesterone is possible and safe. Additionally, we compare different progesterone regimens to determine relative efficiencies. The methods this is an observational case series of 754 patients who decided to attempt to reverse the medical abortion process after taking mifepristone, but before taking the second drug in the protocol, misoprostol. We followed the patients who were given progesterone in the effort to reverse the effects of mifepristone. So, I'm going to go through and skip through some of this stuff and go to the results. From June 24th, 2012 to June 21st, 2016, 1,668 calls were received by the hotline from women who had taken mifepristone and were interested in the reversal. 754, 45%, actually initiated progesterone therapy. Subjects were included in the study only if they were 72 hours or less post-mifepristone and had not taken misoprostol. 38, 5%, did not meet these criteria. So, after some of the inclusions with the patients, there were 547 patients with analyzable outcomes who underwent progesterone therapy. There was 257 births, 47%. Another 4 were pregnant with viable fetuses, but were lost to follow-up after 20 weeks gestation, only 0.7%. The overall rate of reversal of the misoprostone was 48%. There were 2 subgroups that had the highest reversal rate. Those who received progesterone intramuscular in the muscle initially, or exclusively had a 64% reversal rate. One subject in the group had an undocumented number of injections. The high-dose oral subgroup received oral progesterone, 400 milligram twice a day for 3 days, following the 400 milligram once a day until the end of the first trimester, and had a reversal rate of 68%. So the discussion of this study says that progesterone is a naturally occurring hormone produced by the corpus luteum and by the placenta, and is essential for maintenance of the maternal-fetal interface of the pregnancy. It has been used safely in pregnancy for over 50 years. The American Society of Reproductive Medicine states that no long-term risks have been identified when progesterone is used in pregnancy. The FDA has given progesterone a Category B rating in pregnancy in contrast to synthetic progesterones. Now, well, saying that, what I just said after this study was the discussion. It says in here that some anti-abortion, well, it talks about the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, or by the FDA, that it's not safe use by the FDA. And this practice of medical, or reversing the medical abortion, says right here in this study that it is safe to use progesterone in this manner. The conclusion: the use of progesterone to reverse the effects of the competitive progesterone receptor blocker, mifepristone, appears to be both safe and effective. Progesterone therapy makes biological sense. It has been previously published as effective in an animal model, and is supported by this case series, which demonstrates a statistically significant difference in survival between treatment groups in the historic control. Mifepristone is an embryocide and fetalcidal, but not, there's just a lot of big words in here. Anyway, what I'm trying to get with this study, guys, is that I'm just trying to explain to you that, yes, there has been studies done. And yes, this is a perfectly viable way to save the pregnancy if somebody wants the choice to save their pregnancy. If a young lady, and let's say somebody 16 years old that might be related to me, wants to save their child if they took the first abortion pill, and they want that option, they have that choice. They should have that choice. It is not a deceptive practice. The abortion pill rescue network in these pregnancy centers, they go through a rigorous, the doctors there go through a rigorous background check, and they have to be certified to do this work. I just talked to the nice lady that has that is in charge of the 5 pregnancy centers in my area, in my district. I can tell you that my wife and I, we lost our son in 2005, and after that, there was lots of complications with my wife getting pregnant again. And we were able to use progesterone to make those pregnancies viable. I have 2 beautiful little girls. They're not little anymore, but I have 2 beautiful little girls because of that. And I want to make sure to tell you guys this, and I know that you guys are saying not to use the progesterone, but to reverse that first abortion pill, it works. There's a study that shows that it works. There's many studies that show. This is just one that I pulled off the internet. And I wanted to show it to you guys because this is something that we need to look at with coming up with this bill. This bill is an anti-choice bill, in my opinion. And I'm very concerned about what we're going to be able to give those women that want to turn it around. If somebody in their life is making them or coercing them to get a medically induced abortion, and that woman does not want that to happen, she takes the first pill, she should have the choice to get away from that person and make the choice to keep her baby and use this reversal, or what do you want to call it? The abortion pill reversal network. It should happen. It should be able to happen. They should have that choice. I thank you, and I ask for a no vote.
Senator Gardner. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank all of my colleagues who, from my caucus, have come down here this evening and given me a nice long break so that we have time over the next 3 hours to speak about, whoa. Do I need a senatorial 5? We need a senatorial 5.
Do we need one?
Senatorial.
All right, we'll be in a senatorial 5. And a clean up in the well. Yeah. Good. You wanna tap in? Okay, Coleman actually was gonna go next. Because it was a Coleman then. Okay. Well, I don't know if he actually meant 3 hours smaller point. They were only going around. Yeah, that's it. But yeah, I told him around. So he might be wandering over here anyway. Ready?
Ready? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Gardner, go ahead.
Thank you. Members, Senate Bill 190 is only 4 or 5 pages long, 5 pages long. And yet, the bulk of our hearing on the day that we heard these bills in judiciary, these 5 pages took the bulk of our time. So it's regrettable. I hardly have enough time to speak about it remaining in the day. But I'll endeavor to do so. Let's start with looking at the legislative declaration. I think there's been a little discussion of the legislative declaration this evening. It's interesting that this declaration is not intended to be in the statute. But I have to say, it is the most pejorative legislative declaration I've encountered in 15 sessions. It is the most conclusory, it is the most, well, I guess it's the greatest offender of making conclusions unsupported by facts of any I have seen. I mean, some of it is fine. The first declaration in Colorado, a pregnant individual has a fundamental right to continue a pregnancy to determine it or to terminate a pregnancy by abortion. Okay. Pregnant individuals need timely and accurate information from qualified medical professionals to make informed decisions about their health and well-being. Okay. But then we start relying on the American Medical Association, and the American Medical Association is a lot like the American Bar Association, except for doctors, and that is that it's engaged in a lot of political activity and has a lot of a political agenda going. But setting aside all the pejorative language that the American Medical Society uses and that this bill seeks to adopt on behalf of the General Assembly, you get to like D. Anti-abortion centers are the ground level presence of a well-coordinated anti-choice movement. Well, maybe they're the ground level presence of a well-coordinated support movement for pregnant women, or a well-coordinated pro-life movement. When I say that word here and use that term here in the well, I think to myself, I've almost become captive because I say, can I say pro-life? Is it okay to say pro-life? I hope everyone's pro-life. Even if you support a woman's right to choose, I also hope you're pro-life. I mean, we had a whole bill debated for hours on end a session or two ago about the death penalty because people were pro-life when it came to the death penalty. You go on here, it says some anti-abortion centers. Well, they're crisis pregnancy centers, maybe, or pregnancy resource centers. But no, the legislative declaration wants to describe them as anti-abortion centers. Okay. And I guess there's something wrong. I mean, I support those in historically marginalized groups, as the Declaration chooses to describe them. I support them having a right to choose. But that means you have to choose, you have a right to choose between at least two things. What are the two things? Having an abortion and not having an abortion. Oh, not having an abortion means that one would carry a child to term. And it says these centers use deceptive advertising tactics to target and acquire clients from historically marginalized groups. Well, that's an interesting characterization for the work of people who, whether you agree with them or not, are committed to the support of life and to supporting those who wish to carry their child to term, to wish to have their baby. And now something's wrong with reaching out to those historically marginalized groups to provide them the support and service if they choose to have their baby. Somehow that's wrong. I suppose if these centers only worked in wealthy, upscale communities, that'd be okay. Really? Talk about standing things on their head. This legislative declaration stands things on their head, things that we would normally have people down here arguing that we need to serve historically marginalized communities. There's even an implication that encouraging someone from a Black, Indigenous, or rural area to have their baby, encouraging those people and saying, there are supports for you. You can do this. Don't make a decision that maybe you would regret later. I mean, those of us who are parents, for all the challenges that is, would tell you it's the greatest blessing in the world. And somehow, by this legislative declaration, reaching out to people who may not have the support network that your children might have in this circumstance, that's somehow a bad thing? The declaration goes on. It makes one conclusion. It declares some matters of statewide concern. That's, by the way, to make sure we we don't have home rule cities getting in the way. We declare things to be of statewide concern. Don't want those home rule cities to be interfering with what we say. That's why you declare things of a matter of statewide concern in these declarations. Stopping deceptive trade practices relating to access to timely abortion and emergency contraceptives is a matter of statewide concern. Well, shouldn't it be a matter of statewide concern if any deceptive practices are used with those who are pregnant and seeking their option? Shouldn't that be so for the abortion clinic as well as the Pregnancy Resource Center? I would suggest that deceptive practices are not appropriate. I mean, let's go on to the meat of the bill, though. There are really two operative pieces of this bill. One of them is the deceptive trade practice portion. The other is the unprofessional conduct portion, grounds for discipline, et cetera, against physicians, practitioners, and so forth. I thank the best senator from Monument. Now, I want to start talking about the deceptive trade practice portion here, because this seeks to control speech. Now, we haven't talked much about that this evening. We talked a lot about it in committee, heard a lot about it. I heard some people say, commercial speech is not protected. I heard that a lot. That's not true. It's less protected than political speech, but it's not unprotected. I want to thank the sponsors for carrying an amendment earlier today to strike some language here that, you know, I began my questioning of the sponsors. I'm sure they don't remember this at all. My questioning of them as to this phrase here, a person engages in a deceptive trade practice when the person makes or disseminates to the public or causes to be made or disseminated to the public any advertisement that indicates directly or indirectly that the person provides abortions or emergency contraceptives or referrals when they don't. You know, I thank them for removing the words directly or indirectly, but they didn't seem so willing a few nights ago. But when I posed to the proponents of the bill, and not just the sponsors, but proponents of this bill, I said, would you consider it to be deceptive if someone posted a billboard or had the equivalent radio ad that said, pregnant, ? Don't know what to do, ? We can help. All it says. The universal answer from all of them was, yes, that's deceptive. Somehow that represents that you offer abortion services because you say you can help. Well, in no simple country lawyer's understanding of the law would that advertisement in any way be deceptive. It says you can help. I think there were those that were offended because I compared this to, and used some hypotheticals concerning the sale of used cars and said, I'm offended that you should compare the two. Well, you've placed this in the same section of the commercial code that deals with the sale of used cars and insurance and dance studios and gyms and siding, when it's a much more serious topic that deserves a much better treatment. I hope that the sponsors and the proponents' interpretation of their language is not the one that the Supreme Court would uphold across the way, but I hope that the words of the statute will be the first indicator of the legislative intent, and not the people's underlying intentions when you ask them about it in committee, because basically any specific offer of help is a deceptive trade practice if you don't provide abortions. In fact, what became clear to me in the testimony, what became clear to me in the presentation of the bill was anyone who has any kind of a counseling center or clinic that doesn't offer abortions and says, come and see us, we'd like to help you, they're engaged in deceptive trade practices. Now, it also became clear that the opposite is not true under this bill. If you say, come to us, we have reproductive health services, and what reproductive health services really are is we usher you over to the side of the building that offers abortions, and we short shrift the idea of keeping your baby, and we persuade you that an abortion's a really easy thing and you'll be a lot better off for it. That'll be okay. That'll be okay, because that's not anti-abortion. At its core, the speech issue here, the First Amendment issue, is about viewpoint discrimination. This bill doesn't say a person engages in deceptive trade practice when the person makes or disseminates to the public or causes it to be made or disseminated to the public any advertisement that indicates directly or indirectly that the person provides reproductive health care services or referrals when they don't do so. It says when the person provides abortions or represents that they provide abortions or emergency contraceptives when they don't do so. So it's okay, just to explain this viewpoint discrimination, it's okay if this bill passes to misrepresent that you provide services other than abortion, that you'll provide support for things other than abortion when you really don't. That's not illegal. That's not a deceptive trade practice. Talk about viewpoint discrimination. I mean, the language of this Deceptive Trade Practice Act shows it to be what it is. It is a pro-abortion bill. I mean, after all, the legislative declaration itself chooses the language of anti-abortion and abortion, not carrying your child to term and raising your child and the supports for that. Apparently, that's not a good thing. Now, there's a fix for this particular section. It would cause everyone who provides reproductive health care services, which includes both abortion and care to deliver your baby, to deliver a healthy baby.
There is a member in the desk. Would the clerk please read L002?
Amendment L002 by
Senator
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L002.
To L002, Senator Gardner.
So notice that this is L002. We've been on 20 or something, and they get numbered. They get numbered by how they get brought up. So L02 has been around for a while in the queue. In fact, it's the second one in the queue, because this occurred to me several nights ago. This amends the printed bill, and if you look at lines 25 and 26, these are the ones that say that the person provides abortion or emergency contraceptives or referral for abortions or emergency contraceptives when the person knows or reasonably should have known at the time that they don't provide those specific service. It would change it to read, and this is value neutral. This is value neutral. It neither favors nor disfavors. It says a person engages in a deceptive trade practice when the person makes or disseminates to the public or causes to be made or disseminated to the public any advertisement that indicates, and we've dropped those next words, that indicates that the person provides what? Services for reproductive health care as defined in 25-6-4024 when the person knows at the time of publication, dissemination to the public of the advertisement that the person does not provide those specific services. Well, if you look at 25-6-4024, those specific services are a broad range of services. And if you were to indicate that you provide those services when you don't, it would be a deceptive trade practice. Now, 25-6-4024 says reproductive health care means health care and other medical services related to the reproductive processes, functions, and systems at all stages of life. It includes, but is not limited to, family planning and contraceptive care, abortion care, prenatal, postnatal, having had your baby, and delivery care, fertility care, sterilization services, and treatments for sexually transmitted infections and reproductive cancers. That's all reproductive health care. So this would hold every clinic. This would hold everyone to the same standard. You can't represent that you provide reproductive health services, the full category of those, unless you do. Now, the reality is, for the most part, nobody does represent that they provide all of this. My colleagues have talked about what they represent at length and how pregnancy resource centers work. But L002 removes the viewpoint discrimination. We're going to hold clinics who provide pregnancy support services to a higher standard than those abortion clinics that don't call themselves abortion clinics. By the way, have you ever seen driving around and you drive by an abortion clinic? Does it say abortion clinic outside? See billboards? Need an abortion? Call us. Never seen it. They say, what do they say? They say, pregnant, don't know what to do? Call us, we can help. We can help you, what? That's as deceptive. That's as deceptive, or not. I mean, I would contend to you that it's just an assertion that, you know, what's interesting to me is during the testimony, one of the proponents of the bill said it was a deceptive trade practice if you had a search optimization engine for your website, if you were a pregnancy resource center, and so that when people went searching for abortions and things, that you would come up in the queue by the search engine optimization, that somehow that would be deceptive trade practice. My goodness. My goodness. I mean, they want to treat this as commercial speech. That's the premise of this section of the bill. Okay. But there's nowhere in the world that search engine optimization is a deceptive trade practice. You know, having your website come up in the queue on, you know, it's Google, right? You know, having them come up in the queue, because there's all sorts of stuff. I mean, you don't have to put very much in to get a lot of nefarious stuff on other things anyway. Members, L002 removes the viewpoint discrimination. It applies this bill in a way that those who are seeking services either way or don't know, because I believe, based on the testimony I heard, that so many young women in this situation don't really know what they want. They're just frustrated, scared, and don't know who to turn to. And they shouldn't be misled. But they shouldn't be misled either way. I ask for an aye vote on L002.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I rise to support Amendment L002. This amendment is incisive. It focuses the entire conversation. We've put into statute previously over some of our objections, but it is the law of the land in Colorado that a pregnant individual has a fundamental right to continue a pregnancy and give birth, or to have an abortion and to make decisions about how to exercise that fundamental right. Well, this particular bill, 190, is about deceptive trade practices. Well, if we're all in for protecting that fundamental right, then we should actually offer up language that is value neutral. Exactly as the statute, 25-6-403 says, pregnant individual has a fundamental right to continue or to abort. This amendment focuses the language and basically says clearly, if you do something that pushes somebody one way or the other in a deceptive way, that is a deceptive trade practice. This is incisive. It brings the entire conversation into focus. I urge your support of L002.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I like it. It's value neutral. It's a great amendment. Let's just vote yes.
Senator Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I urge a no vote on this amendment. There are limited service centers that offer some reproductive health services, but also advertise for specific services that they do not provide. The question's not whether they provide any reproductive health care services, but whether they are specifically deceiving people as to whether they offer very particular services. It is not a deceptive trade practice to only offer certain services. It's a deceptive trade practice to advertise for services that you don't provide. I urge a no vote on L002.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, with respect, I don't think the senator from Loveland's assertions were responsive to what this amendment's all about. I'm not arguing that maybe there's some center out there that might have engaged in a deceptive practice. I'm simply arguing that there was testimony from very knowledgeable people with lots of experience in this area that there are abortion clinics that engage in deceptive practices as well. This amendment is not about saying, well, we're going to make it okay to engage in deceptive trade practices, deceptive practices with regard to the services we provide. This amendment is saying, as my colleague from Monument said, you can't misrepresent either that you provide services to carry your baby to term and supports for that when you don't, nor can you represent that you provide abortion services when you don't. That's all it does. And you know what? Then it starts to focus on, well, what do you represent? Well, it turns out different kinds of clinics have different viewpoints. You know, this may not be commercial speech, folks. May be misplaced. This may be political speech, the most highly protected kind of speech we have in this country. It represents a particular viewpoint. And if you don't think that abortion clinics represent a particular viewpoint, then you're either being dishonest with yourself or dishonest with everybody else, or both. This amendment is simply to make the Deceptive Trade Practices Act neutral as to both. I ask for an aye vote on L002.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of L002. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. Those have it, L002 is lost. To the bill, Senator Kirkmeyer. There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read? L007.
Amendment L007 by Senator Kirkmeyer, amend printed bill page 2, line 14, strike anti-choice movement.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move L007.
To L007, Senator Kirkmeyer.
Here's another pretty short and sweet and to the point amendment that I'm going to urge an aye vote on. And it basically, it's in the legislative declaration under number D. And where it says well-coordinated, so anti-abortion centers are the ground level presence of a well-coordinated anti-choice movement. It would change anti-choice to movement for choice. So it would read, anti-abortion centers are the ground level presence of a well-coordinated movement for choice. Because they are not anti-choice. That means they're against it. And they aren't against choice. They are for choice. And choice isn't just about abortion or not abortion. It's about abortion, it's about adoption, it's about becoming a parent, and it's about pregnancy. So again, they do have a well-coordinated, but it's a support movement. So I ask for an aye vote on this amendment.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I urge a no vote on L007. This bill is all about choices and informed choices. We are talking about informing patients and pregnant individuals exactly what is offered and not offered, and you cannot make a full choice without clear information. And so this is a bill about choice, and it's about informed choice, and I encourage a no vote on L007.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, you know, I hope the two sides are not talking past each other here. I truly do. Because it seems for one side of the argument that choice means choosing to have an abortion. For the other side of this argument, choice means choosing what you will do when you find yourself pregnant, and whatever circumstances you might be, choosing to have an abortion or choosing to carry the child to term. That's a choice. The other one is marching in lockstep to an agenda, thinking you don't have a choice. You know, one of the things that came out in the testimony, and this goes to this amendment about whether this is anti-choice or a movement for choice, this goes clearly to that, Mr. Chair, if you're wondering if I'm addressing the amendment. You know, we heard from those who are engaged, obstetricians, OBGYNs, engaged with pregnancy resource centers, working at pregnancy resource centers, who said when they administered the abortion pill reversal, which several of them testified that they'd done it hundreds of times safely and successfully, I asked them the question, why on earth are there so many women who take the day after pill, and there are so many that want that to be reversed, because it needs to be reversed fairly quickly? What happened? And the answer was, so many of them thought they did not have a choice. Wow. Women who had initially chosen to have abortion by medication, to terminate a pregnancy by the morning after pill, when they then went looking for help to say, am I stuck with this? I don't know what to do. What were the things? They felt pressured by a boyfriend. They felt pressured by a parent. They felt pressured by their life circumstances. They felt they had no, what did I hear? They felt they had no choice. I thought this bill was all about choice. I hope the two sides are not talking past each other, because the choice has to be a realistic one. If we care deeply about a woman's right to choose, then we ought to care deeply enough to ensure that a woman is not pressured by a boyfriend, not pressured by a parent who doesn't want the embarrassment, not pressured by a parent who wants to, impose some standards about that, not pressured by the fact that they have no one to support them. They don't know what they will do for a job or employment, or how to support their baby, or what they will do. If this is about choice, then let's let it be about a woman making a choice not under duress, not under pressure, simply knowing and understanding what all of her options are in the time that she has to make a decision that hopefully she will feel like was the right decision for the rest of her life. Because it's a life-changing decision one way or the other. Choosing to have a child is clearly a life-changing decision, but if you think that it's not a life-changing decision to decide to have an abortion, then if you're a man, you haven't talked to a woman who has had to make that choice. Nor, if you're a woman, have you not been in a position to make that choice or not had a friend who had to make that choice. If this is about choice, let's let it be about choice, not about the only choice, not about, not about the Hobson's choice. Choose the abortion. That's not a choice. Members, I ask for an aye vote on L007.
Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I need to describe a couple of different circumstances because it is clear to me that there are a number of people who are unfamiliar with actually going to an OBGYN or a crisis pregnancy center, either one. But as a woman in my middle age with a 1-year-old baby, I have gone to medical providers across the years for a number of different reasons regarding my reproductive freedom and choices that I would like to make. So, when one looks for a resource, if they are facing an unintended pregnancy, and there's an advertisement that says, "Are you facing an unintended pregnancy? Come to us for all of your options." One would assume that they actually meant all of their options, which include a number of things. Carrying a child to term, taking a pregnancy test and finding out that you're not pregnant, going to a medical provider or someone that you think is a medical provider, following an incident, and seeking information about the morning after pill, which isn't the abortion pill, but actually birth control, to figure out your options for preventing a pregnancy from happening. Someone might want to think through their options when it comes to pregnancy prevention into the long term. There's actually a lot of different methods, very safe, proven effective. One might seek information about preventing sexually transmitted infections. One might be seeking cancer screenings, breast cancer screenings, cervical cancer screenings. One might be seeking a vaccination that could prevent these things, which exists and is offered by an actual medical doctor in an actual clinic that provides a comprehensive choice of care. One might be seeking information about infertility, desperately seeking information about how to start a family. One might be considering information about a vasectomy, responsibly planning through their family options. Now, I know my OBGYN unabashedly offers every single one of those services that I just described. And I know that because I've been a patient for a number of years. I've been lucky enough to have 2 healthy kids. And have experienced some not so happy outcomes. So when you describe at the well these procedures or the medications that clearly some of us know nothing about, you are describing procedures and medications that many of us have actually gone through, many of us have actually taken. And when I go to the crisis pregnancy center that claims to help me through my options when facing an unintended pregnancy, and what I met with is a pregnancy test, and then shame and guilt about how I got there in the first place, and shame and guilt about any other option than carrying pregnancy to term or giving the child away, versus walking into an OBGYN or Planned Parenthood and receiving information about every single one of the options that you might have questions about. What is best for you in this moment? Is it carrying the child to term? Is it going through the adoption process? Is it terminating a pregnancy? Is it even finding out if you're pregnant at all? Do you feel comfortable being here in the first place? Are you safe? Did you choose to have sex? Someone might have not chosen to have sex and been confronted with an unintended pregnancy and is still met with the shame and guilt about how she ended up in that place in the first place. That would never happen with my doctor, never. Because we would talk through every option, and no matter what stage in my life, the doctor will provide me with medically accurate and comprehensive information that will help me and my husband, or my family member, or my siblings, my mother, my other kids, my priest, whoever I wish to consult with about what is right for me and my body. What if I have concerns about what carrying a child will do for my future reproductive capabilities? If you don't have any experience with that personally, I'm really happy for you. But almost everybody else does. That's why when we say that it is about choice, is because reproductive health care encompasses a huge array of choices. And when you go into some of these centers, they keep that information from you. They will never refer you for a tubal ligation. They will never talk about vasectomy. They will never talk about birth control. They will never talk about the morning after pill. They will never talk about abortion. Or if they do, it's about preventing those options. And that's just how they operate. And if that is the kind of place that you want to visit when you're in a time of crisis or when you're seeking information and that aligns with your values, that's fine. Again, but to claim that providing and speaking about and consulting on the entire array of reproductive health care services is somehow depriving a woman from her choice is inaccurate, very misleading, and that's why we have to keep with these words. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. A woman at one point in her life will risk her life not to have a child. But that same woman will risk her life to become a mother at a different point in her life. She is the only one that knows when that time is. And that is why all of these choices are important to discuss, have available, readily available, safe, accessible, affordable, because depriving women of those other options is not medical care provision. It is a political point of view, a religious point of view, what have you, and again, that's fine. But don't go representing something that you're not. And that is where the deceit and misleading comes in. If my OBGYN put out into the world that all she did was abortions, well, I suppose in some world that would be deceitful practice, but that's not what she does, because she's a qualified, wonderful doctor who is there for me and my family no matter what we need. And like I said, delivered both of my babies. But when I selected her and I called the office, I asked the receptionist if she provided abortion care because I wanted to know what kind of a doctor I was getting aligned with. I wasn't seeking abortion care, but I wanted to know that that doctor would provide it because in my point of view, that was an important thing for me to know about my medical provider. That is why the words are important. That is why we can't adopt this amendment and why we must pass the bill.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to remind everyone, I think they're aware of this, but we're on Amendment L007. And L007 addresses a problem in this bill that is the legislative declaration. I've said, and I'll say again, it is the most pejorative legislative declaration I've seen in 15 sessions. It makes no attempt to be neutral. Now, what L007 is an attempt to provide some even-handedness to the importance of the subject. You know, this bill has a viewpoint as it starts from the beginning. anti-abortion centers, doesn't call them crisis pregnancy centers, which would be more value neutral, are the ground level presence of a well-coordinated anti-choice movement. Well, this amendment simply says well-coordinated movement for choice. For a particular choice, it's not any different than the other side of this debate. It says abortion is a choice. Well, having a baby is a choice. Some anti-abortion centers use deceptive advertising tactics. Well, some abortion clinics use deceptive advertising tactics as well. We heard testimony on that fact. You know, you can say, well, that isn't so. Well, I can say that isn't so too. There was testimony in committee, well-documented testimony from people who had worked in abortion clinics and said, I did it. I regret doing it, but I did that. One friend of mine told a story that I had not heard, and I have to say, I don't usually get emotional, but I was nearly brought to tears because I had not heard this friend and former colleague tell the story that as a young woman she had worked in an abortion clinic. And it's a matter of record and that she had had an abortion. That when she worked in the clinic, she was very, very good as a young woman at ushering people right over to the abortion side. We had a physician who said that she had worked in abortion clinics. And that's what they did. That's the service they sold. You say, well, that sounds terrible to say, Senator Gardner, to say the service they sold. This has been turned into an advertising and trade practice bill. It's about the service that's being advertised versus the service that's there. Members, there's many, the L007 is an excellent amendment and it would be a good start. There are many other places in this bill. You know, in the legislative declaration, it quotes ACOG, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, who call abortion reversal dangerous and deceptive. I asked the physicians, the very experienced OBGYNs who said, you know, I've been doing this for 30 and 40 years. I've done hundreds of these abortion reversals. I said, why is ACOG then call it a dangerous and deceptive practice, and why are they so anti-reversal when you and the other physicians who are testifying here this evening say that you're doing it, and you're doing it safely and successfully? And the answer was because they do not want anyone to know the level of remorse that women often experience when they take the morning after pill under pressure to do so, or because they're in a panic and then they wake up not the morning after but the next morning after and begin to wonder, did they make the right choice? I appreciate the expressions from the senator from Wheat Ridge. I appreciate that. I think it goes to the point that this bill needs to be about neutrality, though, not misrepresenting, or not representing that one thing is a choice and the other is anti-abortion. That's what L007 is about. Again, if you go on in the legislative declaration, there's all of these anti-abortion, as if being against abortion is not a permissible viewpoint. And yet, when we passed the reproductive rights bill, the description, what does it say? A pregnant individual has a fundamental right to continue a pregnancy or to terminate a pregnancy. Not a fundamental right to terminate a pregnancy by abortion, but to do one or the other. That's called a choice. Pregnancy resource centers assert, you can disagree with them, but they believe, they assert, and they are sincere about encouraging. Is there anything wrong with that? There was testimony from people who worked at abortion clinics that what they did was encourage abortion. Encourage abortion to the exclusion of encouraging a woman to think hard about keeping the baby, or how can we provide you support? What can we do to help you? Is there something wrong with having a viewpoint? You don't agree with the viewpoint. I get that. I get that. Could have a little respect for it. You could acknowledge that when a woman makes a choice to be perhaps a single parent and everything that brings and all the challenges that brings, that we ought to support that choice as much as we support the choice to terminate a pregnancy. In fact, I can argue, you can disagree with me and think I'm a lunatic, but I think we ought to support the choice for life far more. Not because that makes abortion wrong, but because we value human life. After all, when we have debate about capital punishment and how wrong it is and we abolish it, why do we do that? Because criminals shouldn't be punished? I hope that's not it. I hope the argument, when we had that argument, was about life being precious. And while I was consistently and have consistently been opposed to abolition of the death penalty, I have always understood why so many people wanted to abolish the death penalty. At least I thought I understood. I thought it was because of a reverence for life. And when they challenged me and said, how can you be pro-life over here and then pro-death penalty over here? Well, there's a philosophic answer about innocence and about the death penalty being meted out to one who's guilty of very heinous crimes in the places in the jurisdictions that it still a permissible penalty. But why is it that this legislative declaration is anti-life? Why is it anti the choice to continue the pregnancy, to have the baby? It's anti that. L007 tries to restore some balance. I ask for an aye vote on L007.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I started off my discussion this evening with regard to this bill about how I felt when I started reading this bill last night. And you know, it's true, when you read the first part of the legislative declaration, it's balanced. It does, as the good senator from El Paso County said. In Colorado, a pregnant individual has a fundamental right to continue a pregnancy or to terminate a pregnancy by abortion. It says both. So it's about choice. The choice isn't that you can only have an abortion. There's a choice about a right to continue your pregnancy, or a right to terminate it, a right to allow someone to adopt your child, give it up for adoption. There are all sorts of things that are involved with pregnancy. And I know what progesterone is. I know what it is to go through a high-risk pregnancy. I know what it is to have cesarean sections, and what that means to go through. And those were a long time ago when they didn't have all of the procedures and all the medical assistance that they have now. It's a different story. I watched my own children, daughters, one of them go through miscarriages. I've watched them go through high-risk pregnancies. In fact, my daughters are about the age of several of the women in this, senators that are in this room. I know what the morning after pill is. I know what Plan B pill is. And now I know what abortion reversal pill is. I know about IVF. So we start off with the legislative declaration that says the balance. Individual has a fundamental right to continue in pregnancy or to terminate a pregnancy by abortion. And then we get to the point, just a few paragraphs below that, where we start talking about ethics, anti-abortion centers known as crisis pregnancy centers. We start putting value judgments on things. In fact, it appears that we hold crisis pregnancy centers in contempt. We call them fake clinics, because they want to prevent abortions by persuading people that adoption or parenting is a better option, is a better choice. There's more than one choice here. And then we further diminish crisis pregnancy centers in the next paragraph. We're not even calling them crisis pregnancy centers. We are now calling them anti-abortion centers. And apparently, they do have a well-coordinated movement, but it's not an anti-choice movement. It's a pro-life movement. So if we wanted to change the words from anti-choice, which is very negative, to that they're a pro-life movement, that would be fine. If we want to get rid of all of D, that would be fine. But to diminish them by saying they're anti-choice, that they are opposed to choice, when they clearly, in your paragraph prior to this in C, they aren't opposed, they aren't anti-choice. Their choice, though, that they try to persuade people to, is adoption or parenting. It's not abortion. You know, we were told this is not an anti-crisis pregnancy center. Well, then let's get there. It's not about being anti-crisis pregnancy center bill. Well, then let's get there. This is the first step. I'm more than happy to go have an amendment prepared to take out lines 13 and 14 totally. And then we can take out the judgment call here. The judgment on crisis pregnancy centers. I ask for an aye vote on this. Amendment L007.
Seeing no further discussion on L007, the motion is the adoption of Amendment L007. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. L007 is lost. To the bill. There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read title 2, or please read L009.
Amendment L009 by Senator Crookmeyer, amend printed bill, page 2, line 15, after centers,
Senator
insert
Crookmeyer.
pro-abortion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L009.
To L009, Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 1 second here, please. I'm sorry. Mr. Chair, this is, did I move it already?
You did.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment is pretty simple. And I'm hoping that I can get support on this because, again, it brings balance and fairness to the legislative declaration so that we can get past this anti-crisis pregnancy centers kind of judgment that we're making in this legislative declaration, this holding them in contempt. Pejorative, I think was the word that was used. So what this amendment does is, in letter E on line 15, after anti-abortion centers, it would insert the words "and pro-abortion centers." So E would read, some anti-abortion centers and pro-abortion centers use deceptive advertising tactics to target and acquire clients from historically marginalized groups, including Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, those who live in rural areas, LGBTQ+ communities, students, people with lower incomes, and people for whom English is not their first language. The reason I'm adding that in, I really don't know if anti-abortion centers use deceptive advertising tactics to target and acquire clients from these areas. I really don't know if that's true or not. But I do know with regard to some pro-abortion centers that it is true. And here's why I'm saying that. Because this is in the message of who we are going to be for Planned Parenthood from their webpage, but it's in their 2021 report. And it's written by their president and CEO and their board chair are both signed on to this. And they talk about how they're at the heart of their work is equity. And we cannot advance health equity without addressing racism. And they go on. But then there is a paragraph specifically that says, so who are we going to be? Planned Parenthood will continue to be the voice on the other end of the line, saying that we'll get you an appointment. We are going to be linked arms, make sure I read this right. We are going to be the linked arms of the LGBTQ+ people and people of color and immigrants, because none of us are free until we are all free. We are going to be the builders of a new foundation of our rights. I think that covers several of the marginalized groups that are mentioned in lines 17 through 19. And additionally, in line 19, it talks about for people whom English is not their first language. Again, I'm not going to go read it and find it, but you can. You can, it's online, it's in the report, how they talk about how they provide interpretation and language for over 67 languages. I think that covers for people whom English is not their first language. So again, I'm asking for some balance in the legislative declaration. I'm asking that we be fair here. When we talk about deceptive advertising tactics, it's not just some abortion centers. However, I don't have any proof of that. I don't know where that's at, but it's in here. But there are some pro-abortion centers who use deceptive advertising as well. And I mentioned that earlier. I'm happy to go through it again if you'd like, but I think it was pretty clear when I talked about that you have to get to 3 clicks on Planned Parenthood before you even see the word abortion. When Planned Parenthood, 41% of the abortions in the United States are performed with Planned Parenthood. I ask for an aye vote on L009.
Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in strong opposition to L009, and I respectfully ask for your no vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion, Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Touche.
I rise in strong support of L009. You know, take a look at all that it really does here. It says, right now the bill says, at page 2, line 15, some anti-abortion centers use deceptive advertising tactics to target and acquire clients from historically marginalized groups, etc. This amendment simply proposes that after centers, some anti-abortion centers, and pro-abortion centers, we heard testimony, much testimony, and reliable testimony from reliable people who've worked in pro-abortion centers, that they engage in deceptive advertising tactics to target and acquire clients from historically marginalized groups and in historically marginalized neighborhoods. They do. Not all of them, it says some. All this amendment is trying to do is recognize the reality on a equitable basis. I mean, we want to achieve equity, right? We're not against equity, are we? Hopefully we're for equity. Trying to achieve equity with respect to pro-abortion centers and anti-abortion centers, to treat them equitably before the law as to their deceptive advertising tactics for the sum of both that do. There's so much of this legislative declaration, this amendment points it out, that is value-laden and agenda-driven. Instead of, and the agenda is not, as I read it, I must conclude that the agenda is not the protection of individuals who are pregnant. Where I come from, we call them pregnant women. They are not the focus of this bill's protection. The focus seems to be the protection of one type of service provider over a different type of service provider and someone who provides a different kind of service. I mean, after all, we put this in the commercial portion of the statutes, called it commercial speech. You know, it strikes me that probably far earlier in a debate over whether a dance studio of one sort is okay and a dance studio of another sort's not okay, or event ticket sales purveyor of one place in the chain versus one in the other source of the chain. I would have argued about that on that context a lot quicker than I have this, which is we're favoring one type of service over another type of service. Because what? One type of service is good and the other is bad. We're not willing to say any reproductive health center. I mean, that would be the way to do it more value-free, but this starts with some anti-abortion centers. And all that the senator from Weld County is asking in L009 is to say, and pro-abortion centers do it too. I would ask the sponsors, do you deny that that happens at all, anytime, anywhere, someplace? I don't think that would be a credible claim to make. I mean, I'm not going to stand up here and say that no pregnancy resource center, no crisis pregnancy center none ever engaged in some sort of deceptive practice, because I don't know. I mean, I heard testimony that they did, but I also heard testimony that abortion centers did as well. So, you know, not being the judge and not being the jury, but just being a legislator hearing testimony, I go, I think this must be a problem. Must be a problem. And we ought to legislate about both. Because the people we seek to protect are pregnant individuals, not one center over the other. I ask for an aye vote on L009.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of L009. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it, L009 is lost. To the bill, there is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read L012?
Amendment L012 by Senator Smallwood, amend printed bill, page 2, lines 10 and 11, strike or fake clinics, page 2, strike lines 13 and 14, read letter succeeding.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment 12.
To Amendment 12, Senator Smallwood.
So, colleagues, I think what I'd like to try to do, I mean, you've heard a lot of reasons to vote for or against this bill today, but I would hope that, if nothing else, the proponents take away from tonight what so many of us feel is just an absolute blatant lack of written decorum. That is, to me, as close to inexcusable as I've seen in the 7 years that I've been here. I mean, it is as close to pure vitriolic drivel that I've ever seen. Like, there is no reason that just because you share a majority opinion that anybody, I think, should be this insulting to hundreds of thousands of people. Can you imagine, colleagues? Can you imagine a bill that I've run where I would start a legislative declaration talking about my political opponents in this manner? I mean, 10% of Democrats can identify themselves as pro-life. It's not a lot, but it's 10%. 10% of your own constituents are reading this, and this is how you're addressing them. 40% of unaffiliateds are pro-life, and this is what you're telling them. And now, conversely, almost 25% of our side of the aisle considers themselves pro-choice. Therefore, I would never, ever consider running a bill and stating something like, you know, pro-death advocates want to see this and pro-death this, and murderous this and that. I mean, come on. Fake clinics? Fake clinics? That's what we've devolved to as a body? Anti-abortion centers are the ground level presence of a well-coordinated anti-choice movement. So well coordinated, in fact, that none of us have ever been contacted by them. They're that well coordinated. That I've yet to get a single email, voicemail, letter, postcard from this well-coordinated anti-choice movement. So what I'm suggesting, colleagues, I mean, if this is how we want the rest of the legislative session to go, if we want to just move to pedantic name calling, and that's how we want to operate as a body, the senator from Denver, I couldn't have said it better. We've got bigger things to worry about than name calling, because that's what this is. That's really all this is. The sheer lack of even thinly veiled neutrality is just appalling. And I am not trying to sound sanctimonious here, but I've seen a lot of ledge decks. And I haven't even been here that long. This is like truly jumping the shark. So what I would suggest is that we take a step back and we try to at least be professional and adults and not demean our political opponents in this transparent a way. Let's start by striking the term fake clinics, which at least they have the courtesy to put in quotes. At least they have that. At least they're not just stating it as material fact. Anti-abortion centers are the ground level presence of a well-coordinated anti-choice movement. It sounds like we live in North Korea. Colleagues, again, it's getting late. You've heard the concerns, not even so much, I mean, there's a lot of concerns about the bill itself, but the lack of written decorum is something that I think we're better than and would encourage an aye vote on Amendment 12.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of Amendment 12. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it, and L12 is lost. To the bill, there is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read L11?
Amendment L001
Senator
by
Pelton
Senator.
B.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L011.
To the amendment, Senator Pelton B.
Yes, what this amendment does is it removes all reference to medication abortion reversal. It takes away everything out of the bill. It also takes away the penalty for doing it in the bill. The reason why I brought this up is that when the sponsors had said earlier about how all progesterone is still used for pregnancy, well, members, this is a 2-pill regimen with medication abortion, and after you take your first one, you're still pregnant. So using progesterone in the way that they're using it, you're still pregnant. So this should be part of what the sponsors have talked about. The tragedy of chemical abortion, how common it is, growing in popularity and availability, chemical abortion often referred to as Planned Parenthood and other abortion clinics as medication abortion or abortion pill, account for more than 50% of all abortions in the United States. Some women prefer chemical abortions to surgical abortions, as it is often promised to be less invasive, advertised as more natural, and promoted as the abortion in the privacy of your own home. However, it is not without physical and emotional risk, and for many, a lot of regret. What happens when a woman changes her mind after beginning a chemical abortion? It is possible to choose again. Women often regret their abortion, and sometimes that regret sets in right away. Heartbeat International has a hotline where those who would like reversal of chemical abortions can seek help immediately. We connect callers with local providers. Every woman deserves to know the whole truth about abortion. That includes facts about her unborn child and the choices she can make every step of the way. Every innocent human life, whether born or not, is valuable, precious, and worthy of full protection. Statistics show that more than 2,000 lives have been saved from chemical abortions since our program began, with many more on their way. For those seeking to reverse a chemical abortion, the goal is to start the protocol as soon as possible. However, there have been many successful reversals when treatment was starting within 72 hours of taking the first abortion pill. We are always here to help, even if it's been more than 72 hours. How is progesterone used to save the lives of these babies? The abortion pill reversal is an application of time-tested, FDA-approved treatment used for decades to prevent miscarriage and preterm birth. It involves emergency, ongoing doses of progesterone to counteract the effects of the first abortion pill. The abortion pill reversal protocol works by using progesterone to outcompete mifepristone for the receptor sites, creating a possibility for the pregnancy to restabilize. Progesterone is a natural hormone required to support all pregnancies, and evidence strongly supports that prescribing bioidentical progesterone is safe when used in pregnancy. Bioidentical hormones are man-made hormones that are very similar to hormones made naturally by the human body and used as a treatment when hormones are low or out of balance. Progesterone has the following important functions to support a pregnancy: prepares the endometrium, develops the placenta, inhibits contractions, keeps the cervix closed. After the first trimester of pregnancy, the placenta takes over the progesterone production from the ovaries and substantially increases progesterone production, so additional progesterone is usually no longer needed. Why is it important to require abortion providers to tell their patients that the medication abortion can be reversed? Denying the women truth denies them the real choice. Statistics show that more than 3,000 lives have been saved and counting as women successfully stop their chemical abortions and save their children through the Abortion Pill Rescue Network. This reveals that the reversal information is critically important to many women. We know that no woman should be forced to complete any medical procedure or process she no longer desires. That's choice. Is progesterone safe in pregnancy? Progesterone support in pregnancy has been routinely and safely used in healthcare for decades, having received its start with publications dating back to the 40s. In an observational case series of patients who decided to attempt to reverse the chemical abortion process after taking mifepristone and were prescribed progesterone to support the pregnancy, the researchers concluded that the reversal of the effects of mifepristones using progesterone is safe and effective. And it shows that there's an FDA review here that stated there is no risk of birth defects. 1999, the FDA reviewed, stating that there is no risk of birth defects in pregnant women taking progesterone. Now, when the sponsors were up here before and talked about progesterone, they talked about how that is not the part that is hurt in this bill. And it does say that the pregnant, in section 1 in the declaration, in Colorado, a pregnant individual has the fundamental right to continue their pregnancy. And that's why this amendment will help, because it takes all the medical induced abortion reversal out of the bill. I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of L11. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. L11 is a loss. To the bill, there is an amendment at the desk. Will clerk please read L6?
Amendment L006 by Senator Kirkmeyer, amend printed bill page 3, line 12, strike the following
Senator
issues.
Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move L006.
To L006, Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate that. L006 removes all of Section 3. That's what it does. It removes the part, and it removes the conforming corresponding deletions that would be in the legislative deck as well. It removes anything related to the unprofessional conduct and grounds for discipline, offering medication abortion reversal. This is the part of the bill that talks about the punishment. The punishment to physicians and physician assistants and anesthesiologists. This is where I spoke to earlier with regard to informed consent. And the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists, in their position paper, strongly support laws which require women to be informed of the option of the abortion pill rescue as part of a woman's right to informed consent prior to abortion. Regardless of how those of us in this room feel about whether or not abortion pills, reversal pills, work, the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists say that it does. Informed consent. It's a principle in medical ethics and medical law that a patient must have sufficient information and understanding before making decisions about their medical care. Yet in this bill, we have a licensee, a registrant, or a certificant, if they engages in unprofessional conduct or is subject to discipline pursuant to Title 12, if they provide, prescribe, administer, or attempt medication abortion reversal in this state. I know we had a provision earlier that said, oh, we're going to take it to the medical board, who doesn't have all medical people on it, doctors. This is the part where we punish doctors. Doctors for doing what they feel they must do pursuant to medical ethics and medical law. There's been no medical board in the United States that has found that this was unprofessional conduct. There's been no medical board that's done that. You know, punishment is the imposition of a penalty as retribution for an offense. We're punishing wrongdoing. That's what punishment means. Somehow that there was a misdeed. In this case, the misdeed is making sure women have options to choose, that they have options to choose from to continue their pregnancy. They have the option to choose to change their mind. If you are a doctor, a physician assistant, or an anesthesiologist who provides, prescribes, administers, or attempts medication abortion reversal in this state, your penalty is unprofessional conduct. Just to be clear, it not only removes all of Section 3, it removes, again, within the legislative declaration, on page 3, it removes essentially lines 17 through 20, which is declaring that it is unprofessional conduct for a person regulated pursuant to Title 12 of the Colorado Revised Statutes to provide, prescribe, administer, or attempt medication abortion reversal, as described in Section 12-30-120 of the Colorado Revised Statutes. A licensee, a registrant, or a certificate should not have to be under the threat of unprofessional conduct or subject to discipline because they ensure that a woman knows what all of her options are, because they ensure that a woman is informed and that they have sufficient information and understanding before making decisions about their medical care. I ask for an aye vote on L006.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask for a no vote on L006. This procedure is not scientifically verified or backed up by any means. It is unethical and experimental on patients, and it is misguided to let patients think that they can reverse an abortion with this treatment, and I urge a no vote.
Senator Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Touche.
Members, you really need to understand what L006 does and what the senator from North Peltonia is trying to accomplish, because it's an important thing. If you look at the amendment, it says amend printed bill, page 3, line 12, strike the following issues. Are we on 6? Yes. So, if you look at page 3, line 12, it says, let me get to the following issues. You strike that on line 13 and substitute, it is a matter of statewide concern to stop. You strike stopping, and you begin to say, stop what? Deceptive trade practices. You go to 316, you strike reversal, and you just do reversal. Why do you do that? So that you can strike 17 through 20. Well, what is that? Declaring that it is unprofessional conduct for a person regulated pursuant to Title 12 CRS to provide, prescribe, administer. You know, that's Section 3 of the bill. Now, we heard testimony in committee that no medical board, no medical licensing board in any jurisdiction in the United States has found the prescribing administration of abortion, medication abortion reversal to be unprofessional conduct. None. In fact, what we heard was from providers that many of them do this. They've done it successfully, they've done it safely. And in all those times that they've done it, no one's gone to a medical board and made a complaint. Maybe they did, but they haven't made a complaint that resulted in a finding of unprofessional conduct. And they're doing this, and they're doing this thing that their patients are asking them to do. I want to keep my baby. And somehow that's unprofessional conduct to administer that. Goes back to what I said earlier. I asked of one of our physicians who does medication abortion reversal, who's done that, I said, why is it that ACOG, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, is so opposed to this then? If no medical board has found it to be unprofessional conduct, if several of you, at least several of you, because several testified to the committee, are doing them successfully and safely, my recollection is into the hundreds, why is ACOG so bothered by that? Why have they taken such a position? And the only explanation is they don't want people to know that many women who have an abortion experience remorse or second thoughts about whether it was the right thing. That's not a medical position on the part of the AMA or the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. That's not a medical practice, trust the science, trust the treating physician kind of position. That's a political position. I told you earlier, it strikes me that the American Medical Association and ACOG are a good deal like the American Bar Association and the American Trial Lawyers Association. They less and less are devoted to the fair administration of justice and more are devoted to a political agenda. What else does this do? Line 7 of the amendment, page 5, strike lines 3 through 19. What is that? I already know what it is without opening. 3 through 19 is section 3 of the bill. I want to talk at length about section 3 of the bill, and I think this is an opportunity to do so, but I don't know. I think one of my colleagues has another amendment that he'd like to carry before I go into what constitutes unprofessional conduct. What the testimony at the hearing was that says that this is a really bad idea. For the time being, I think we ought to strike section 3, which is what L006 does, and I ask for an aye vote on L006.
Seeing no further discussion on L006, the motion is the adoption of L006. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. L006 is lost. There's a member at the desk. Will the clerk please read L13?
Amendment L013 by Senator Smallwood, amend printed bill.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment 13.
To Amendment 13, Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, colleagues. One more shot at decorum, getting back to being able to call each other colleagues again. Would ask for an aye vote on Amendment 13.
Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I very much appreciate the good senator from Parker for bringing this. I shared that I had a meeting in a clinic at the Crisis Pregnancy Center in Loveland on Sunday. And in that conversation, the doctor that I was talking to shared with me that he was actually personally hurt. I'm going to move this back. sorry, by the word fake. And I apologize to him personally for that. I want to clarify that the language that is in this bill that has, in the legislative declaration that we're talking about, that is so provocative, a lot of that actually came from the American Medical Association. It was not actually us. But given the good faith of this amendment, I would urge an aye vote on L013. Thank you.
The motion is the adoption of L013. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and L13 is passed. Seeing no further discussion, Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do not have any more amendments. I'm just going to make a few comments. In everything that I've read about crisis pregnancy centers, they've been upfront and have appropriately disclosed that they do not provide abortions. And the purpose of those centers is to show women that there are alternatives to abortions. But even if you wish to ignore the political propaganda that is tried to be passed off as necessary legislation for the good of people, Colorado already has existing laws preventing deceptive trade practices. So rather than actually accomplish anything, this bill seeks to eliminate any alternatives to abortion, and instead goes about trying to smear CPCs, which are crisis pregnancy centers. Thank you for agreeing not to call them fake clinics, but in effect, does hinder freedom of speech. Though the language of the bill prohibits a person from engaging in a deceptive trade practice, the legislative declaration and title of the bill make it clear that the crisis pregnancy centers are being targeted because of their beliefs. The bill also focuses on what it deems to be pseudoscience of abortion reversal pills and alleges the pills are dangerous and there is insufficient evidence to show their efficacy. According to the American Pregnancy Association, abortion reversal pills, abortion pill rescue treatments have shown promising levels of success during clinical trials. The association claims that the APR treatments are only effective within 24 hours of taking the mifepristone, and it involves a large influx of progesterone into the pregnant woman's system. You can find scientific studies published in the National Library of Medicine that supports this claim, and the abortion pill reversal websites claim that the APR has a 64 to 68% success rate. And I've already discussed that the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists support the APR treatments, the abortion pill reversal treatments, and they have stated that progesterone has been safely used during pregnancy for decades without undesired effects. And the efficacy of reversal is, in fact, higher than sitting and waiting alone to see if a pregnancy continues. I could probably go on. I know we've agreed not to. I've made a lot of my comments before. I'm just going to repeat a couple of them. This bill, it's about taking away a woman's right and putting up a barrier to choosing life. It essentially says to me, let's just keep those women in the dark. Let's not inform them of all their options. That we don't respect women enough to let them make an informed decision. We are undermining a woman's well-being. As I said earlier, I thought pro-choice meant that a woman had a right to choose, that they could choose between life for their unborn child or an abortion and end pregnancy. Tonight, it's not about pro-choice, it's about pro-abortion, that you would only have the right to choose an abortion. And as I said earlier, the ultimate deception, because the title of this bill is about making punishable deceptive actions. The ultimate deception is in this bill. And it can be found on page 2 under A, where it starts off saying in the legislative declaration that we are here, that here in Colorado, a pregnant individual has a fundamental right to continue a pregnancy or to terminate a pregnancy by abortion. And last year in House Bill 22-1279, it's very clear, you made it very clear to all of us, every individual has a fundamental right to make decisions about the individual's reproductive health care. This bill is about limiting choice and limiting options. I believe this bill is deceptive, and I ask for a no vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the passage of Senate Bill 190. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 190 is passed. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to lay over the balance of the calendar until tomorrow, Wednesday, March 22nd.
The motion is to lay over the balance of the calendar until tomorrow, Wednesday, March 22nd. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the balance of the calendar will be laid over until tomorrow, Wednesday, March 22nd. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion for the committee is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
Senate will come to order. Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills in consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report it has had under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 109 is amended, Senate Bill 188 as amended, Senate Bill 189 as amended, Senate Bill 190 is amended, passed on second reading and ordered, engrossed, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bills 53, House Bill 1126, 1117, Senate Bills 39, Senate Bill 67, Senate Bill 69, Senate Bill 72, Senate Bill 149, Senate Bill 151, House Bill 1219 laid over until March 22nd, 2023, and retaining their place on the calendar.
Members, given the late hour, the coat rule is relaxed for everybody in the chamber. Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the adoption of the report.
The motion is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. And there is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read Cow Amendment 1 to the Committee of the Whole report?
Cow Amendment 001 to Senate Bill 109.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Cal 1 to the Committee of the Whole report.
Is there any discussion? Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment is not one that you have not seen before. This is the amendment regarding Senate Bill 109 and Amendment L35, which referred this bill to the CCJJ to report by December 21, 2023 on sentencing that would pertain to the issues raised in Senate Bill 109. I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Mullica.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, people in our community are dying today. Delaying any time frame to me is not appropriate. We need to be trying to pass policy to hold these drug dealers accountable and bringing that accountability for those who are dying in our communities today. I ask for a no vote.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was going to save this for thirds, but since the item of people are dying today was brought up, the statistics show when this policy has been implemented in other states, it immediately has a chilling effect. And with the statistics of those that are dying and the percentage from the other states, the number is 104 additional deaths will happen from overdoses from the chilling effect this legislation will have. So keep that in mind.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of Cow Amendment 1. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Smallwood, Will, Baisley, Simpson, Rich, Pelton B, and Pelton R. Hanson, Roberts, Mullica, Liston, Gardner, Kirkmeyer, Minority Leader Lundin, Janal, Zenzinger, Bridges, Buckner, Fields. Senator Buckner.
Mr. President, I want to be recorded as a no vote. As a yes vote.
We got you. Senator Buckner will be recorded as an aye vote on the Cow Amendment. Please add the president. With a vote of 14 ayes, 20 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Cow Amendment 1 is lost. There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read Cow Amendment 1 to Senate Bill 188.
Cal Amendment 001, Senate
Minority
Bill...
Leader Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This amendment, as you recall, dealt with Senate Bill 188. It was the section of the bill where we were asking for the ability to collect evidence for witnesses to be able to testify, to actually understand if there were practices that were detrimental to the patients, the people that were actually truly seeking to serve in this bill that is all about protecting this new class of providers in a substantially different and more powerful way. The amendment simply says that, or as you recall from the amendment itself, it actually provided for the collection of evidence, the standard practices we would have in the law if a court or arbiter finds the testimony relates to a legally protected healthcare activity. So the reality is it gives, if a person in a black robe, federal or state judge says we need to gather this information to understand and prosecute the law properly, we would in fact be able to do it. I urge your support of this amendment, Cal Amendment 1.
Further discussion. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had a long discussion about this during the debate on Senate Bill 188 and clarified multiple times that the provisions protecting legally protected health care pertain to legally protected health care. And unlawful activities remain unlawful. For that reason, I ask for a no vote on this Cal.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before the body is the adoption of Cow Amendment 1 to Senate Bill 188. Are there any no votes? Senators Coleman, Roberts, Hansen, Mullica, Exum, Majority Leader Moreno, Gonzalez, Rodriguez, Jaquez Lewis, Kolker, Janal, Zenzinger, Marchman, Fields, Bridges, Sullivan, Henriksen, Priola. Oh, sorry. Priola is an aye vote. It's late, all right, guys. Buckner. Winter. Danielson. Please have the president. With a vote of 13 ayes, 21 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Cow Amendment 1 is lost. There's another amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read Cow Amendment 2?
Cal Amendment 002, Senate Bill 188. Senator Pelton be moved to amend.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Cal Amendment 002.
To the amendment.
What the amendment does is that it just prevents the unconstitutional public funding of abortion. And we debated this on Senate Bill 188. And it just strikes abortion, and then it says abortion provided the community-based provider or organization reimburses the state for transportation costs.
Senator Pelton R.
Thank you, Mr. President. I heard loud and clear in my district that we need to follow the Constitution. We need to not spend taxpayer dollars where it's not appropriate. So for that, I would ask for an aye vote on this amendment.
Further discussion. Senator Gonzalez.
Did you bring a cow with you? It's gotten to that time of night, y'all. We also understand and respect the Constitution, which is why we crafted Senate Bill 188 narrowly and intentionally. We ask for a no vote on this Cow amendment.
Question before the body is the adoption of Cow Amendment 2 to the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? Senators Hansen, Coleman, Roberts, Mullica, Exum, Majority Leader Moreno, Kolker, Janal, Jaquez Lewis, Rodriguez, Fields, Marchman, Zenzinger, Bridges, Sullivan, Henriksen, Danielson, Winter, Buckner, Gonzalez. Please have the president. With a vote of 13 ayes, 21 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Cow Amendment 2 is lost. There's another amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read Cow Amendment 1 to the Committee of the Whole report?
Cow Amendment 001 to Senate Bill 189. Senator Rich moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to show that the following Rich Floor Amendment L009 to Senate Bill 189 did pass. Amend printed bill page 8 after line 8. Insert section 5 in Colorado Revised Statutes. Add 1016-160 as follows. 1016-160 coverage for birth and
Senator
child.
Rich.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Cow Amendment 001 to Senate Bill 189.
To the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment states that a health benefit plan must provide covered childbirth and childbirth-related services without deductibles, co-payments, co-insurance, benefit limits, or any other cost-sharing limits. We have an opportunity tonight to show everyone in Colorado that we do not discriminate against women who choose childbirth. I ask for an aye vote.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I'm going to request a no vote on this Cow amendment. The actuarial analysis that was conducted was specific to the provisions of Senate Bill 189. If this Cow amendment is adopted, not only will the actuarial analysis no longer be valid, it'll actually probably show that costs will dramatically increase by this provision. I think we did our due diligence in this bill to try to make sure we abided by the tenets of Senate Bill 40, which the senator from Fort Collins and the senator from Parker had run before in doing that actuarial analysis, which actually shows that the provisions of this bill will actually reduce premiums. If this amendment is adopted, I think you will see those premiums dramatically increase.
The question before the body is the adoption of Cow Amendment 1 to the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? Senators Hansen, Malika, Coleman, Majority Leader Moreno, Janal, Jaquez Lewis, Rodriguez, Fields, Buckner, Marchman, Zenzinger, Sullivan, Henriksen, Danielson, Winter, Gonzalez. Bridges. Please have the president. With a vote of 16 ayes, 18 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, that amendment is lost. There's another amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read Cow Amendment 2?
Cow Amendment 002 to Senate Bill 189. Senator Smallwood moved to amend the
Senator
report of the...
Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, colleagues, I had a few of you come up and ask me after this amendment failed what exactly it did. So I understand that perhaps I wasn't very clear with it. You will not hear the majority leader say that this amendment impacts things through the actuarial analysis, because it doesn't. This amendment, and I move Cow Amendment 2, Mr. President, this amendment is looking at one narrow section of Senate Bill 189. It is just the section that says that under Medicaid, the State Department shall not apply utilization management, including step therapy or prior authorization requirements, to any prescription drug used for the treatment or prevention of HIV. So telling Medicaid, we're not going to do this for HIV patients, even though we're going to do it for all other patients. So all this amendment does simply goes through the list of the other, and the term that was used earlier is manageable yet life-threatening diseases. If you look at the amendment, almost all of these are exceedingly manageable, just like HIV, but the difference between these and HIV is all of these diseases cause exponentially more deaths when not managed and not treated. So what I'm asking you to consider is, again, has nothing to do with the health insurance companies, has nothing to do with patient sharing. We're telling Medicaid that what is good for HIV patients is good for cancer patients, good for respiratory disease patients, good for cardiovascular disease patients, and if we're not going to do prior authorization and step therapy for our HIV patients, we shouldn't do it for the other very manageable diseases that could extend one's life. And vote your conscience, colleagues.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do ask for a no vote on this amendment. I'm struggling because there are a number of conditions that are raised in this amendment that I think do go beyond the scope of the title, which is concerning increasing access to reproductive services. So I'm debating. Mr. President, maybe we could just have a little sidebar on a possible title ruling.
Would you consider that a senatorial 5?
Yes.
Senate will stand as senatorial 5. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President, and colleagues, appreciate your indulgence. I will not be requesting a title ruling. Instead, I will just encourage your no vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of Cow Amendment 2 to the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? Senators Coleman, Hansen, Roberts, Mullica, Henriksen, Majority Leader Moreno, Gonzalez, Janal, Henriksen, Jaquez Lewis, Rodriguez, Zenzinger, Bridges, Fields, Danielson, Sullivan, Winter, Buckner. I'm going to keep looking for others for a while. No one's going home until someone over here raises their hand. Marchman. Please add the president. With a vote of 15 ayes, 19 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, that amendment is lost. There's an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read Cow Amendment 1?
Cow Amendment 001 to Senate Bill 190. Senator Gardner moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to show that the following Gardner Floor Amendment L002 to Senate Bill 190 did pass amend printed bill page 4, strike lines 25 and 26 and substitute
Senator
service.
Thank you, Mr. President, Your Excellency. I move Cow Amendment 001 to Senate Bill 190.
To the amendment.
Thank you. Members, you will recall some hours ago that we had an amendment L002 to SB 190. This Cow says that that did in fact pass while it was called as lost. What did the amendment do? It amended printed bill page 4 and striking lines 25 and 26. This made the bill equally applicable with respect to deceptive trade practices to all clinics that provided reproductive health care, not just pregnancy resource centers, but also other clinics, any clinic that provides reproductive health care. This protects all women who seek these services. I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I encourage a no vote on Cow Amendment L001. This is applicable that you have to advertise honestly the services you do offer and do not offer, and so this amendment is unnecessary, and I encourage a no vote.
Question before the body is the adoption of Cow Amendment 1 to Senate Bill 190. Are there any no votes? Senators Hansen, Coleman, Roberts, Mullica, Exum, Majority Leader Moreno, Gonzalez, Marchman, Winter, Rodriguez, Fields, Buckner, Henriksen, Jaquez Lewis, Kolker, Janal, Zenzinger, Bridges, Sullivan, Danielson. Please add the president. With a vote of 13 ayes, 21 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, that amendment is lost. The motion is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Will, Baisley, for what it's worth, just Senators Baisley, Van Winkle, and Will are being recorded as no votes on the Committee of the Whole report. Good? Okay. With a vote of 31 ayes, 3 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 109 is amended, Senate Bill 188 is amended, Senate Bill 189 is amended, Senate Bill 190 is amended, passed on second reading, order engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 53 and House Bills 1126 and 1117, Senate Bills 39, 67, 69, 72, 149, 151, and House Bill 1219 laid over until March 22nd, retaining their place on the calendar. Conference committees to report.
First report, the First Conference Committee on House Bill 1101 to the President of the Senate and Speaker of the House of Representatives. Your First Conference Committee appointed on House Bill 1101 concerning support for transit and in connection therewith, increasing the flexibility of the Ozone Season Transit Grant Program and increasing opportunities for transit agency participation in regional transportation planning, has met and reports that it has agreed upon the following. One, that the House accede to the Senate amendments made to the bill as the amendments appear in the revised bill. The following changes respectfully submitted. House Committee Representatives Bacon and Vigil, Senate Committee, Senators Winter and Hinrichsen.
Message from the House.
March 21st, 2023, Mr. President, the House has passed on third reading and transmitted to the reviser of statutes House Bills 1224, 1089, and 1225. Amended as printed in House Journal March 20, 2023. The House has passed on third reading and returns herewith Senate Bill 150.
Message from the reviser.
March 21st, 2023, we herewith transmit without comment as amended House Bill 1089, 1224, and 1225.
Signing of bills.
March 21st, 2023, the President has signed Senate Resolution 5.
Announcements.
Good announcement.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I just want to thank everyone here in the chamber for all of your attention to all of the bills that we have been able to debate and discuss over the course of several very long hours. There are lots of staff members and custodians and folks who do the work and who will continue to do the work even after we adjourn. And so to the extent to which you can clean off your desk, put your files away, do what you can to make sure that we're leaving this place as best we can. That would be greatly appreciated by everyone here, certainly in the chamber. Thank you to the bill drafters and to certainly the staff members up here at the front of the desk. That's all. Thank you.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I know you will be itching to get back into this building as soon as possible tomorrow. And if you would like to be here early, tomorrow is Ag Day. And at 7:30, Water Education Colorado and the Department of Agriculture are having a discussion about ag water needs and solutions in Colorado. There will be breakfast and coffee, so House Committee Room 107 starting at 7:30. Please join us.
Senator Gonzalez.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I have one announcement that you're going to want to hear and another one which we'll see how you take it. First, the good news, the great news, we will be having a 10 a.m. start tomorrow. So we have a delayed start where we'll start at 10 a.m. The second announcement, which Legislative Council asked me to make, is each of you got this letter which outlines the process established by the Executive Committee for requesting interim committees. The short answer is don't request interim committees. But if you choose to, this is the process by which you need to abide by. And just so you're aware, those requests are due in writing to Legislative Council by Wednesday, April 12th. So just so, you're aware. And with that, Mr. President, seeing no further announcements, I move that the Senate adjourn until tomorrow, Wednesday, March 22nd at 10 a.m.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? The ayes have it, and the Senate will adjourn until 10 a.m. Wednesday, March 22nd.
Aye.